So today marks the 1 year, we would say, to one of the greatest matches that we saw. I would say the date that was October 23, 2022. What do you recall of that match, and what is that one kind of experience or one thing that you would like to share with us?
Starting to talk about that day, probably even before the match, something that was a concern was the weather. So that was where a lot of people had that hope of having just the match being played rather than what is going to happen with the match. I still remember we were finding ways because we couldn't go to Australia. We were finding ways amongst our group of where we would go to watch the match and planning those things. But eventually, when we got to know that the weather is going to show like 95% chance of rain, we thought that probably this might turn out to be a washed out game. And then the next day in the morning, we got to know that now this is the match that is actually going to happen. We were hoping that even if it's a 10-over game, that would still give us a result. But luckily, we got an entire game, and everyone knows the amount of satisfaction that game has given to not just the players within the team but also all the fans across the world. Probably one of the greatest games in the history of T20 cricket.
So when I was at the stadium, there was this one clouded area on the half side of the stadium, and one side was absolutely sunny. So I just think the prayers got answered by God Himself that day, that we didn't have one drop of rain coming down that time, and the players were there on time, and the match started on time. Everything went so well, and then obviously that one kind of knock, particularly that we won't forget. But not to forget, before that, India was bowling. What do you have to say about that?
I think it all started with Arshdeep Singh. I mean, he was probably the best bowler that day. The kind of wickets he took, not to mention, I mean, of course, you can't forget that Shaheen Shah Afridi, he himself is a similar kind of bowler. So Pakistan already has played against him in the nets. So we all assume that they would feel Arshdeep is not a big threat as compared to other bowlers. But the way Arshdeep took that first wicket of Babar Azam, I mean, that was something that no one could actually expect. And then getting Rizwan out in the next over of that short ball, again, that was a beauty of a delivery. So Arshdeep was something that no one would have expected because it was his first big game that he was playing, and having a packed crowd in MCG, having that pressure of playing an India versus Pakistan game, it was definitely very pleasing to watch a bowler of his caliber giving that performance after coming through the ranks in the IPL and then playing the T20 World Cup. So yeah, the bowling, it started off really well for us. Then again, Pakistan had that great partnership between Iftikhar Ahmed and Shan Masood, and both of them did really play well and got the momentum going again. But I think that I would like to know from you of how was that when India actually had those two wickets early up front, and then this partnership was building. What was the atmosphere that time?
So honestly, when you talk about the atmosphere through the match, it was honestly just beyond explanation. Even 4 hours before the match, I would say, we were talking about the weather, everyone knew that it could go haywire. But there were people coming in, thronging in from the Melbourne city centre, from India, from Pakistan. And the best thing was it was a proper neutral game where you could see Pakistan fans coming in with their flags. And we had a full-on parade, okay, where the Indian fans started off first and then following by the Pakistan fans. And then there were these England and Australian fans as well who would come for this match, because everyone knows that the arch rivals meeting at one of the grandest stage in one of the biggest events, that is the T20 World Cup, and playing a game like that. But then obviously as the match started, everything on time. Arshdeep Singh, the moment he bowled Babar Azam, the crowd went absolutely bonkers. And especially the Indians were extremely happy. We can't say the same for Pakistan, because I think Babar is that one player which they bank on, doesn't matter what the format is, but he's one of the top players. But it is maybe a stat or maybe not, but Babar really hasn't held his string whenever it comes to batting against the Indian team. So that was like a wicket which came like icing on the cake. And then again, as you mentioned, Rizwan was again bowled very early on as well. So India probably had a lot of things in their, I would say in their bag at a very early stage. But then again, the partnership that pulled off, and then even the final score, when we come down to how Indian batters batted, especially our top order, I think the score was a mighty one that Pakistan posted.
Definitely. I mean, when you look at that score, the way Pakistan were cruising, Shami getting that wicket of Iftikhar Ahmed was a very crucial one, because they were cruising at a stage where you could see a possibility of them getting 200 in that 20-over game. But the pitch, of course, the pitch was a beautiful wicket to bat on. It was literally one of the finest wickets in that T20 World Cup. And I think that is where what happened with Pakistan was they got carried away with the partnership that they had formed, assuming that they might get to that score. But that is where again Arshdeep also came into the picture and took that wicket of Asif Ali, where they could not get that power rating in the lower order, and India restricted them to a decent total. But as you mentioned, that when our openers got out, that total did seem a total that was very difficult to achieve. And the way we started batting, when of course Rohit and Rahul both went out cheaply, then that partnership that happened between Virat and Hardik.
Right.
When Hardik came into bat, everyone knows Hardik is a kind of player that you cannot expect that maturity from.
Right.
He has that ability to take the game away from the opposition. But what we saw that day was the kind of interactions they had on the pitch between each other. I mean, you would know that better because we couldn't see that when the overs were changing. But yeah, one thing that we also got to know was that eventually the discussions that Virat and Hardik had, that literally gave Hardik a sense of calmness, that he does not have to literally go hitting right from the first delivery. And even Virat, he took his time. When he got Akshar Patel run out, that is where you could see on his face that he somehow had made up his mind that he is going to stay there till the end. And we have seen that in the past, that whenever Rohit and Virat have had some confusions, and if there is a run out between one of them, the other person has stood there and ensured that one of them goes and makes a big score, which exactly happened that day as well. And that is where Virat and Hardik eventually gradually started taking those single double. I think around the 11th over is so from the first over till the 11th over, India did not cross even 10 runs per over. And then the 11th over, they got 20 runs in that over. So that is where the momentum shifted entirely. Pakistan, on the other hand, could not use it to their advantage. They should have capitalized. They should have tried a way where they could, just get Virat Kohli out, because that would have been the game changer for them and they would have won the game there itself. But the partnership that stitched between Hardik and Virat is something that I think all the fans will never forget. And then what carried on was something that, again, it comes down to the fact that what is the discussion happening between the two batsmen at that point of time. Because if one of them gets carried away, you know that one brings two. That's the most famous term we have in our cricketing arena. So that is where they both carried the form and they took that single double, they took the risk where it was needed. And we had a wonderful game ahead. But according to you, what do you think when they were batting and when that phase was there where we were not scoring runs? How did you think from outside as a fan who was there in the stadium of what is going to happen there?
So, obviously I'll come down to India's batting, but the one thing that happened in the innings break, the lights went out in the Melbourne and we were asked to remove our flashlights and 1 lakh people had turned on their mobile phones, and it was a very beautiful moment. Until then, we thought that it's going to be the most beautiful thing that we saw in Melbourne, but only after that we got to know that probably there is this one player that India has looked up to for the last 15 years. He played the knock of his life. Honestly, the greatest knock that I have seen live. But as you mentioned, Hardik and Virat, I think there was not a single ball where Virat didn't walk up to Hardik or Hardik didn't walk up to Virat. They were in the middle where they were discussing, even we do not know what they were discussing. But I think Virat, being the mature player that he is right now and being even the leader of the team, I think he was just saying Hardik to just be there, because obviously we didn't have a lot of people coming after Hardik. And as you mentioned, we obviously know what kind of arm strong Hardik holds. Once he is on the move, he can take away the game from anybody in the world, honestly. So I think that was the only conversation they were having at that particular time. But when it comes down to the fans, so from the 8th over to the 13th over, I don't think a single Indian fan just stood up from their place and flared the flag. Nothing of that sort happened. They were all on their seats. Most of them had even lost hope. I think there was a win predictor that was shown at the big screen after the attendance that was portrayed, and they said that 70%, 76% think that Pakistan will win the game from there. But anyway, win predictor is all about assumptions, and then there is Kohli who can break the assumptions. So then came a boundary which was filled full of hope, and then the Indian fans just stood up and they were waving the flags and they were singing Chak De India and everything, that some kind of hope just emerged. And then after that, the kind of shots that Kohli played, pure textbook shots, middling the bat, fours and sixes and going all over the ground. And then even Hardik, the way he supported him, obviously the match was all about Virat Kohli and how he did it that night, but I don't think we credit Hardik a lot of what he did. Even staying there, taking those singles, it is not easy when you are at the crease in an under pressure situation and you are running with Virat Kohli, because we just saw Akshar Patel getting run out, and the same could have been with Hardik, but I think he managed that pretty well.
Also with Haris Rauf, I mean, he was the best bowler that day for Pakistan. And for a bowler like Haris Rauf, and again the caliber of Shaheen Shah Afridi, when India needed 48 of 18, you would think that now Shaheen has 1 over and then Haris has the 19th over to bowl. They would probably not give away more than 20 runs, which would eventually save 28 to 30 runs for the final over. But then when Shaheen Shah came and when Virat hit that first ball, that looked like a 6 but went for a 4. So that is where again the momentum did shift towards India. And you could see in that Kohli's eyes, I mean, he was literally there with that hope that he would get the team through. Because again, he has played his entire life manifesting these situations. And we have seen that he has won games for India. And again, everyone does mention that this has been the greatest knock that he has ever played, which even he has agreed to, that the pressure, the entire magnitude of the game was the greatest that he has been a part of. But again, not to forget that the game that he had played against Australia in the 2016 T20 World Cup, I mean, that game was by far the favorite game that I still have in one of my top 10 games. And that knock by Kohli was something, because we had a similar kind of a situation where we had lost our openers very quickly, and Australia had a very decent score on a pitch that was very, very challenging. I think when you compare both the pitches, that pitch that they played there in Mohali was a very difficult one. Here you still had the ball coming onto the bat nicely.
And it was a potential knockout.
And it was a potential knockout game. So that game, again, the pressure was very different there. But again, Kohli had that manifestation power that he could get the team through, which he eventually did it there as well. And then here, again, against Shaheen Shah Afridi, that ball went for a 4. Then he had hit a lofted cover drive that also went for a 4.
Right.
So those, and that shot was also not difficult. His one hand just came out of the bat. So people just thought that it might not go till the boundary, but it actually crossed the fence. So there were these moments that were built where you saw that he had that hope that he would cross the line for India, and eventually he wanted to keep the strike as much as possible. And then when that Haris Rauf over came, 28 of that 8 deliveries was something that any batsman who's playing there against the likes of those kind of players wouldn't think that that is possible. Of course, everyone has that hope. Everyone wants to convert those 2 balls into that maximum that they can get. But Virat Kohli, the kind of shot that he played on that second last ball of the over, I mean, you just cannot do that as a player when you are not in that zone. You see that people talk about that hand-eye coordination, and that ball is probably the best example one can ever give for a hand-eye coordination. He had his eyes on the ball probably since the time Haris Rauf started taking his run up, and then eventually when he just pitched it short of a length, that ball going back on top of his head was something that, I mean, I still get goosebumps just thinking about this. So imagine, and you could see that in his eyes when he hit that shot, that he knew that this game has been taken away from Pakistan. So that was something unbelievable. And again, the next ball that went for a 6. I mean, we talk about players like Surya Kumar Yadav to hit those kind of shots, but people actually don't know that Virat has already done hit those kind of shots before. In the 2016 T20 World Cup against Australia, I remember that there was a delivery done by Maxwell where the ball was giving a curve, and even then when Virat had his head fall off, he still could put that ball for a 6. And then against James Faulkner, he was coming on around the wicket with that off cutter that he had bowled, and it still pitched, and the ball did cut off a very. It was a strong deviation, but still Virat was out of his crease, and he could manage to time that ball so well that eventually it went for a 6. So those are the two shots that I still remember. Then the shot of Pollard in the India versus West Indies T20 series where he was batting on 44 of 20 and he just flicked it for a 6, which was so effortless to watch. And there were other shots in that series too that he played. And again, people always see that relation between Virat Kohli and AB de Villiers. And Virat Kohli hitting a shot that resembled AB de Villiers in the series versus Australia, the Dettol T20 series, if I'm correct, against Andrew Tye. So that shot again, still he would himself rate it amongst his top 3 shots. So everyone knew that he had that caliber to hit those shots, and he did exactly that in that game.
So there's this one shot that you spoke, and there's this one stat that I would like to share. So there were like around 27,353 balls that have been bowled at length or shorter at pace in T20Is. Out of them, 1,369 of them have been played on the front foot, that is approximately 5%, and 148 of them have been played in the V, that we say, that is around 0.5%. And 16 of those were hit for a 6 in the V, that is almost 0.005%. And that one shot of the 16 shots were played on that particular night at the Melbourne. I mean, in a game where the stakes are so high, hitting a shot of that kind, which is almost unimaginable, not only for the fans, I think it would be unimaginable even for Virat. I think that was the greatest shot and the most greatest knock that one could ever see.
Definitely, it was definitely one of the greatest knocks. But again, when India needed 16 of 6 in the last over, and Virat not being on strike, I think that could have been another moment that Pakistan could have capitalized. But when that the last ball of the 19th over that went for a 6, you could see Harris Roff's reaction that he was literally on his knees. I mean, his hands were on his knees and he had given up hope. And that is those kind of things when you see on the field, your other players get demotivated by it.
The body language of Virat Kohli as well, after hitting that 6 where his tongue touched the lips and it was moving like a pendulum, it just showed that, the kind of body language that he was possessing and how confident he was of winning the game no matter what the situation.
Definitely. And then again, on the first delivery, you had Hardik on strike. You got his wicket on the first ball. Getting 16 of 5, again, another difficult task. You had Kohli to then come on the strike and then take those another 4 deliveries. So Pakistan still had the game very much in hand. But again, as you mentioned, the body language of the Pakistani players changed so much. Maybe if there was a team hurdle or something that could have been done there by them, maybe then someone would have just given them the hope that we still have the game in hand. But then again, what happened was something that is full of controversies, I would say. But still, that is a part and parcel of the game. And then Virat coming on strike, hitting that ball for 6 off a no ball. Then that free hit hitting the stumps and then running 3 runs. Dinesh Karthik had probably the most easiest task to do, but still he got out.
But then that's what pressure does to a normal person.
So we know that Dinesh Karthik came into the squad on the back of a very successful IPL. He was probably termed as the best finisher that year. And still he could not get into that pressure zone and he could not absorb that pressure and win the match for India. But then you have to also credit Ashwin. What people generally, as you earlier mentioned, that people do not give enough credit to Hardik. Again, Ashwin deserves that credit because the kind of player that he is, what people do not know about Ashwin is he's a very tactical player and he's a very strategic player. He does not go on his beliefs or he does not go just on an assumption that the player will do like this or like that. He knows his data very well. He knows that the other team is also under pressure, and also to mention the fact that he has played with Dhoni in CSK. So they all know how to take the game till the end, and you know that the pressure is on the bowler and not on the batsman, which Ashwin used it to his advantage. If I feel any other player would have been there, they could have seen that the offside is literally empty because all the players are just inside the circle. Someone would have just gone inside out and tried to hit that shot and for that winning run. But he did not do that on the very first ball that he played. He literally waited to see that ball, and he knew that that bowler would try to pitch it till his pads, and then he just smartly let the ball go, and we got a wide. I mean, that was something that literally no one would have expected, that we could get that wide run in that moment. And again, the last delivery, Ashwin knew that again the ball is going to literally be pitched on his pads, and the way he just put it on top of that mid-off fielder. I mean, you have to give that credit to Ashwin, that no matter everyone does talk about Virat Kohli giving us that momentum and winning us that game, which he eventually did, but Ashwin had an equally important role, because that ball was the ball that was going to decide the outcome of the match. And that was literally probably going to be Ashwin's greatest career highlight that he will always remember.
Yeah. And also, not only about that, after that the winning runs were scored, and the entire Melbourne started to sing Chak De India, and there were only Indian fans all over, Indian flags waving all over, and there was we had to actually console the Pakistani fans of what they had, and this good game, and that was happening amongst the fans as well. But when we talk about a player like Virat Kohli, whatever happened with him, be it the captaincy chaos or be it his personal problems, whatever he was facing, I think one thing that he openly spoke about was about mental health. And how I fondly remember in an interview where he mentioned that people meet me, they don't even ask me how I am, they just tell me, "Okay, Virat, you're not scoring a century." But I think his 82 runs were like a testimony to what a century couldn't be, but 82 runs against arch rivals, and then winning the game from a place where nobody thought that they could win. And so what do you have to say about the entire scenario where he was put through, whatever situation he was put through, and then coming like a lion out in the stadium that we call the Big G in front of 90,000 odd fans?
What happens is, we as fans just watch the game, but a lot of people do not actually give importance to the things that actually happen outside the field. I still remember, I sat down, I have gone through all the videos that were shared, and I saw one particular clip where Virat Kohli was walking back to his dressing room, and then when he was walking up the ramp, he met Paddy Upton, who was the mental and strength and conditioning coach, if I'm not wrong. So he had they met each other, and Virat Kohli just pointed to his head. And that shows that it is not just about the physical fitness or the pressure that these players play, but it has a lot to do with their mental strength. I mean, Virat going through a lot in that phase of his life. He was not getting hundreds. A lot of things happened with his personal and professional life. But that mentality that he had before the game, and exactly what he displayed or what he had shown to Paddy Upton, just gives a simple idea that no matter what situation you are in or no matter what is happening to you, everything is in your mind. If you have that belief, if you have the power of manifestation, you can get anything and everything that you want. And that also gave us a hope that whenever we are in a situation like this, we just cannot give up things so easily. Because you might have a lot of things happening around, you might feel that you are the only one going through all of this. But if you still have that mental belief, mental strength, I think a lot of things eventually start coming your way and you get what you want. So what Virat Kohli did that day was another prime example that it is not just about the physical fitness, but also about the mental strength that you need to have. And that is eventually what we saw that he has done over the years. And I think he's still doing it, and I'm sure that he's going to continue to do that till the time he's there on the field.
I think in the atmosphere of the Big G revealed just one tale, Virat Kohli's rise to the status of a cricket demigod. Because that day when he was walking out after the celebrations happened, and Surya Kumar was the first Indian to reach out there, and Rohit Sharma lifting him on his shoulder.
That is one side.
I think all those celebrations just totally, just say what kind of a knock even the Indian players themselves witnessed, because most of them were just clueless. They just wanted, we don't care, we just need to win the match from here, and then every every player just running, and Virat Kohli was walking like a lone warrior, you know. I mean, he wasn't crowded by any of the Indian fans. At one point where Surya Kumar hugged him and Rohit lifted him, he was walking back, and it was a long, long walk where he was just, we still don't know what he was thinking, but it was a knock where a man can just himself say that, yes, I have done it.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, a person like Virat Kohli going through those emotions, no one would expect. But again, for him, that match was an important one in his career, because I think after that game, a lot of things eventually changed for him.
Right.
And then the kind of games that he has played from that match till now has again given a lot of hopes to all the fans across the world that he still has a lot of cricket left in him. At that point of time, many felt that you might see Virat Kohli probably the last time in not only the World Cup but in just cricket. He might retire is what everyone was talking about. But the kind of turnaround that he has had after that game, and we talk about such knocks too that are highly rated. I mean, we are in 2023, but we still talk about the knock that he played in 2016. So I'm not too sure how long we are going to talk about this knock, but it has been probably one of the greatest knocks one can ever witness. And a lot of people have, you know, they just have seen that a few players have that caliber of taking the game away. And as you mentioned that Virat walked like a lone warrior or something, but even when he comes out to bat, the opposition still feel that okay, this is the wicket that they want.
Yeah.
Even if there is another player playing on 100 on the other end, not to demean any player, but even when Virat Kohli just walks out, they just feel that this is the wicket that we want, because if we can't get him out, no matter who else is playing, he alone can take the game away from us. So Virat Kohli has probably given us the best innings to watch, and I think that innings should literally be seen by all the budding cricketers, that no matter what situation you are in, it is not just about cricket but also gives a lot of perspective about life, that these are the things that you need to keep in mind, that the game is not over till it's over.
Right.
So probably the greatest knock ever.
So it's not over until the fat lady sings. And not only that, once this entire thing got over, there was a approximate time gap of 18 minutes where the post-match presentation started. Obviously, Virat needed his own time to go into the dressing room, change, and come back and give the interview. He didn't even know what to speak, but then obviously there was Ravi Shastri on the other end, where he was a former coach, and they had a beautiful conversation about Virat mentioning what he thought about that knock. But again, not a single fan, be it an Indian or Pakistan or a neutral, left the stadium, to be very honest. They were all sitting back for the 21 minutes, because in India we just see the match is over, people start moving out, or there are 5 runs, people start moving out. But here everybody was so patient, they were just waiting back and watching just to hear what Virat Kohli has to say. And not only that, but even once it got over and everything was over, people were still singing the Indian songs such as Chak De India and Vande Mataram and everything of that sort. But the thing that happened at the later stage, where the press conference and everything ended and people started to move back, so the one thing that Australia had to do from their end, so the metros over there just run by midnight, and I think it was 1 or 1:30, the fans were at the station with all the dhols and everything. It was a typical Indian atmosphere. I would say I didn't even think I was at Melbourne. I thought I was at Mumbai Central or a Dadar station, where people, Indian fans were just waving their flags, and they had these drums and all the Indian flags were playing, and it went on till 3 in the night, although we took the last train. And Melbourne had to, give us that last train so that we could reach back home. And so things like that were possible because of this one particular match that happened, because not to mention that there was also a very high octane match between Australia and England, although that didn't take place because of the rain, but nothing of that sort happened. No, adjustments or placements of this sort was happened, like they did do it just for a match of this caliber, and I think it just took off. It was one of the greatest match that we witnessed.
Definitely, and for the fans who literally travelled from India to watch this game, this would have been probably the best thing they would have ever done, or the greatest decision they might have ever taken, to watch a game, go so far, travel so far, shell out a lot of money into their accommodation, travel and everything, and then watch a game like this. You definitely feel that you have done something really worth it in life, of watching such a game. And that was something that I as a fan really felt, I still regret to this day that I did not take that call of going and watching that match, because I'm sure if I would have done, I would have cried. I would have literally cried watching that innings while I would have been there in the stadium. So again, that match, that shot, again particularly that shot. We talk about these shots. You saw that shot by Ben Stokes when he hit that in the Headingley Test match, and you see that clip where he's hitting the shots and the whole background erupts. And again, this similar kind of a clip that we had seen with this particular shot. I mean, you have such moments. And you know what Sunil Gavaskar sir had mentioned once, that when he dies he would want to see that six by Mahendra Singh Dhoni in the finals of the ICC Cricket World Cup. I think probably what I would want to do is create a clip, create a reel of all these shots and watch the entire thing before I die, because the kind of shots that these are in terms of cricket, in terms of the game, in terms of the magnitude of the game, I mean, you just can't keep them out, and this always stays in your memory. So by far the best T20 game ever, and we just hope that we see a lot of such games, because again, that is the kind of game that brings in more fans to the stadium, and it gives you that hope that there are a lot more things that cricket still can offer, and cricket still has a long way to go.
And I honestly would trade anything and everything just to relive that one night again, which is 23rd October 2022. So thank you, Parth, for having this conversation with us.